Welcome to Literary Insights. Are you ready to transform your leadership style and make a profound impact? In a world where outdated notions of superhero leadership still prevail, imagine leading with empathy, vulnerability, and authenticity. In today's episode, we dive into Hortense Gentil's enlightening book, The Unlocked Leader: Dare to Free Your Own Voice, Lead with Empathy, and Shine Your Light in the World. Join us as we uncover how to break free from mental obstacles, embrace true leadership authenticity, and inspire those around you. Ready to unlock your full potential as a human leader? Let's get started. Spencer Stuart is a global executive search and leadership advisory firm. Some key points. Founded in 1930 and headquartered in Chicago, with over 60 offices worldwide. Known for conducting executive searches and leadership consulting for boards of directors and C-suites of major companies. Areas of focus include CEO, board director and other C-suite searches and succession planning. Also provides other leadership advisory services such as board evaluations, executive compensation benchmarking, and leadership assessment and development. Managed partnerships where senior partners generate business and bring in clients, then junior partners handle delivery of services. However, some clients strongly prefer to work directly with the managing partner. Has had success with over 800 CEO searches and placements, as well as board director and other C-suite roles at large, well-known global organizations. Maintains a high-touch, hands-on approach where possible with clients, even as firms grow in size and complexity. Focuses on personalized client relationships and service. Seen as a top premier executive search and leadership advisory firm, with a reputation for discretion, quality of placements, and delivering on client needs and expectations. The introduction argues that the traditional view of leaders as superhero figures who are infallible and in control is no longer effective in today's volatile business environment. If you like the book, you can purchase it using the links in the description below. By buying through these links, you contribute to the channel without paying any extra, as we receive a small commission. This helps us bring more quality content to you. The world and business environment have become more complex, unpredictable, and fast-paced. Companies need to be agile and collaborative to survive. No single person has all the answers. Employee expectations have also changed. In addition to competitive pay and benefits, employees want to feel respected, listened to, understood, and inspired. They want leaders who see them as individuals and care about their well-being. Authentic, human leaders who connect with employees on a personal level and prioritize the collective good are better able to gain influence and motivate teams. Simply displaying dominance is no longer enough to emerge as a genuine leader. Failing to meet new employee expectations carries real costs like disengagement and lack of loyalty, which negatively impact business outcomes like profits. Respect from leaders is the top factor affecting employee commitment. In summary, the traditional superhero leadership model is ineffective today. Companies need leaders who can navigate complexity through collaboration, agility, and a human approach that values individual employees. The traditional model of the fearless, infallible superhero leader is less effective in today's business environment, which demands more empathy, connection and caring for employees and shareholders. Effective modern leadership is about connecting with people, understanding their needs, and empowering them, not just having technical expertise. It's entering an era of empathy. Companies like Microsoft have seen success by transforming their culture to embrace empathy under new CEO Satya Nadella. Empathy is important for innovation, customer service, and building diverse high-performing teams. However, many leaders still cling to the superhero model despite evidence for more human, empathetic leadership. This is because shifting mindsets and behaviors is difficult for several reasons. Habit, goals-focused superhero leadership is what many leaders have relied on for success. Fear, leaders face fears around connecting with emotions, losing control, and potential failure in this new approach. Lack of how-to guidance. While the importance of empathy is discussed, there is little practical advice on cultivating it as leaders. Overall, the passage argues that effective modern leadership requires being more human through empathy, but overcoming inherent fears and transitioning ingrained mindsets takes effort given the lack of how-to support currently available to leaders. The chapter introduces a child who spends time drawing circles in the sand by the sea, feeling limited. An oyster tells the child that humans have gifts beyond limits and should seek their path of roses. The child sets off to find that path. On the way, the child meets a horse walking in circles in a dried-up meadow, hungry. The horse sees a green meadow but thinks it cannot go there because of an electric fence that isn't really there. This chapter establishes that mindsets or beliefs can become like invisible fences that limit us, even when better options are available. The child's journey will be about overcoming limiting mindsets to unlock their full potential, just as the horse needs to move past its belief in a non-existent fence. The path of roses represents fulfilling one's potential and purpose. Mind traps are beliefs or mindsets that initially helped us but have now become obstacles. They formed from early experiences seeking approval, belonging, or success. Over time, as situations change, mindsets fail to adjust and hold us back from progress. What once served us no longer does. Signs of a mind trap include feeling stuck, that something must change but not knowing how. When the pandemic started, a CEO realized his usual leadership style was no longer appropriate. Other signs are repeatedly getting feedback that undermines a belief in oneself. A perfectionist executive was shocked by team engagement scores that conflicted with his own view of success. Mind traps often involve habits that got us ahead but now get in the way, like an overfocus on technical skills when emotional skills are needed for a new role. Collective beliefs around gender, careers, or success can also become mind traps when they no longer fit changed situations but are still unconsciously followed. Here are the key points from the summary. We often feel stuck in our careers or relationships but aren't sure why or how to move forward. Mind traps can be limiting beliefs or mindsets that hold us back without us realizing it. Bill George realized his intense drive to become a CEO was actually a mind trap that made him lose touch with who he truly was. Once he shifted mindsets, he felt liberated. Mind traps aren't always obvious, things keep happening repeatedly but we blame others, or our health suffers as a signal we're ignoring. Arrogance and imposter syndrome are also common mind traps. Blake struggled due to believing certain types of leaders were the only valid model, despite not fitting it himself. Symptoms of being stuck in a mind trap can include unhappiness, burnout or depression, as Tanisha experienced from always hiding parts of herself. We aren't as self-aware as we think. It's uncomfortable to admit weaknesses, and we have blind spots. Our brains take shortcuts that color our self-perception. Truly seeing ourselves clearly is challenging but important for growth. Trauma-based mind traps originate from unresolved traumatic experiences in one's past. Even experiences we do not consciously remember can still influence our behaviors and beliefs. Andrew, a top executive being considered for CEO, unexpectedly performed poorly in his interview with the board. On reflection with his coach, he recalled feelings of anxiety and imposter syndrome during the interview. Probing further, Andrew realized his board interview experience reminded him of his final oral exam in business school. He had a traumatic experience during that exam where he completely froze and failed, despite usually excelling academically. This past trauma, which Andrew had entirely forgotten, unconsciously resurfaced during his high-stakes board interview. His mind trap of imposter syndrome and anxiety was triggered by the similar pressure-filled situation, sabotaging his performance without his conscious awareness. Unresolved past traumas can lay dormant but then be unconsciously reactivated in similar current situations, distorting our behaviors and abilities through trauma-based mind traps. Internal reflection and coaching helped Andrew uncover how his long-forgotten experiences still influenced him. Here are the key points about identity as a potential mind trap. Our identity or sense of self can become tied to achievements, roles, or attributes like being the best or on top. When circumstances change and that identity is challenged, as happened to some Harvard students used to being number one, it can trigger a psychological crisis. Without recalibrating how we see and value ourselves, our mental well-being becomes precarious and dependent on external validation. Losing or changing roles like becoming an empty nester parent or giving up a major pursuit like competitive horseback riding can shake one's identity. Having too narrow an identity makes us vulnerable when that identity is disrupted. A more multifaceted sense of self is more resilient to change. Breaking out of an identity mind trap requires recalibrating how we self-define and find inner worth independent of achievements or roles to maintain well-being through life's transitions. In summary, how rigidly or narrowly we tie our identity and self-worth to attributes or roles can become a mind trap vulnerable to external changes outside our control. The passage discusses 3 common mind traps or mental traps that people can fall into: trauma, identity, and roles/archetypes. It provides examples of people struggling with an identity mind trap when losing their career/job that they had strongly identified with. This includes a retired CEO who felt his identity and worth were tied to his career position. Roles/archetypes mind traps involve having a fixed view of what roles like friend, parent, leader should look like and feeling inadequate if you don't live up to that image. This was the case for a CEO struggling with grief and guilt over a friend's death. Conforming to a role that no longer fits can lead to unhappiness, while an inability to accept differences from an ideal role can cause shame. Both scenarios trap people. The passage advocates reflecting on how you see yourself in your various roles to identify potential mind traps holding you back from growth or change. Addressing trauma, identity, and rigid role perceptions are presented as ways to overcome limiting mindsets. Blake, an entrepreneur, internalized the view that a successful leader needs to project unshakable confidence without showing any doubts or insecurities. However, he struggled because he didn't graduate from a prestigious university and wasn't highly analytical, which he believed were attributes all leaders should have. This created a mind trap for him where he viewed his own strengths as weaknesses. Unable to fully trust in his own ideas and vision, he found a business partner who fit the stereotypical leader profile and let that partner decide the company's direction. This mind trap undermined his potential as an effective leader. Mind traps negatively impact how people relate to and communicate with others. For Blake, it created an imbalance in his relationship with his business partner where he deferred to his partner's opinions instead of being equals. It also made it difficult for him to inspire and motivate his team. Trauma, identity, and beliefs about roles can all create mind traps. These mind traps then influence how people behave in relationships at work and as leaders, sometimes stepping into the wrong role. Uncovering the underlying mind trap is important for shifting one's perspective and behavior. Claire was struggling in her new senior position, feeling her ideas weren't valued and she wasn't trusted or appreciated. She was also still grieving her father's death a few years prior. Through exploring her history, it became clear she had internalized her mother's view that her creative, intuitive side was crazy and messy while her father's vision of success prioritized rational thinking and constant work above all else. To gain approval from her parents, she suppressed her natural talents and pushed herself relentlessly to emulate her father, constantly striving for more results but never feeling satisfied. Unless she accepted and allowed her full self to be expressed, including her caring, creative side, she would never feel truly accepted or value herself. Our parents and other authority figures often shape us through the messages and examples they set, which can later develop into unhelpful mind traps if not addressed. Overcoming these internalized voices is important for well-being and potential. Our views and behavior can be shaped by the communities we are part of, whether family, friends, colleagues, or wider cultural groups. This collective influence comes from a desire to belong in the way our brains affect each other. Religious, cultural, or social norms within our communities can create collective voices that sometimes lead to mind traps if they conflict with our individual identity or values. Stories are provided of people like Dr. Asher Valka, who grew up in an ultra-religious community that did not accept his sexuality, and Star Carter from the book/film The Hate You Give, who had to code switch between her predominantly black neighborhood and predominantly white private school. Seeking acceptance while maintaining one's own identity can be challenging when straddling different cultural or social worlds, such as immigrant children between their parents' culture and their new country. These collective voices can pressure us to conform at the expense of our individuality. However, we must recognize our true nature and not become like the hungry ghosts who are never satisfied regardless of how much they conform. In the end, we each have the power to choose which voices to listen to, the collective voices of our communities or our own inner voice and values. The voices we feed will be the ones that win. Abraham Lincoln gave a speech shortly before being assassinated that included plans for limited black suffrage. This likely provoked John Wilkes Booth, a Confederate supporter and actor. On April 14, 1865, Booth shot and fatally wounded Lincoln at Ford's Theater in Washington, D.C. around 10 p.m. as Lincoln watched a show in his private box. After Lincoln died the next morning, items were found in the pockets of his black coat, including newspaper clippings. These clippings documented key Union victories in the Civil War and praised Lincoln and his leadership. Lincoln reportedly suffered from depression throughout his adult life. The positive newspaper clippings he carried were voices he chose to hear when his spirits were low to counteract negative thoughts. His assassination cut short his presidency during Reconstruction. Our brains automatically construct stories to organize the huge amount of stimuli we receive each second into meaningful patterns we can understand and remember. Without realizing it, we fit everything into narratives with human characters, emotions, motives, etc., even when there is no true narrative. This helps our brains make sense of the world and find order amidst chaos. Our limited conscious awareness filters out most stimuli to focus on the most relevant information. However, this filtering also means we miss things right in front of us. Our brains link different pieces of information and experiences together to interpret their meaning and form explanations or stories. This shapes our mental patterns and worldviews. Each person's stories are unique based on their memories and life experiences. Through these stories, our brains enable us to travel in space by visualizing places, and through time by recalling past memories and experiences. This allows us to mentally escape from boredom or distance ourselves from challenges. In summary, the automatic story building of our brains helps us organize information, find meaning, and mentally travel through space and time. However, it also shapes our perceptions in ways we may not realize. Our unconscious minds can be accessed through dreams and memories resurfacing. Our brains also allow us to envision the future. As a child, designer Ralph Lauren dreamed of success despite humble beginnings. He visualized the life he wanted, and this vision motivated him to build a successful clothing business. While our perception of reality is shaped by our brain's filtering and meaning-making, we have the power to rewrite those internal stories. Understanding this gives us agency over how we see ourselves and our environment. A crucial way our brains make sense of the world is by reading other people. We unconsciously make quick judgments about others based on facial expressions, tone of voice, etc. However, we are often inaccurate in our perceptions of others. There is often a gap between how people see themselves and how others see them. Our brains have mirror neurons that activate both when we perform an action and when we see others perform it. This ability to mirror others is important for learning and empathy. Stories intensify this connection. When we hear stories, our brain activity synchronizes with the storytellers. This helps us experience emotions and feel what characters feel. Stories deeply engage our minds through this brain-to-brain connection. Stories have the power to engage us emotionally and change our perspectives by allowing us to connect with and understand other people's experiences. Popular media like TV shows that feature nuanced portrayals of marginalized groups can significantly impact attitudes. Our brains are wired to be influenced by others. Being around positive people lifts our mood, while negative environments make it harder to stay upbeat. Collective emotions and opinions, especially from those we identify with, shape our own views over time. Getting an outside perspective can help us recognize mind traps and shift our own mindsets. Crises or difficulties sometimes trigger mind shifts if we're open to learning from them. External views that provide a new frame of reference for how we're seen can also promote change. To shift our thinking, we need to look inward honestly and listen openly to feedback, even if it challenges our self-image. Outside views may show us blind spots that we can't see from our usual vantage point alone. This opens possibilities for examining beliefs and changing outcomes by adjusting our perspectives. The passage describes how external perspectives can help identify and shift limiting mindsets or mind traps that we are blind to ourselves. Close friends, family, colleagues, workshops, and observing others can provide valuable outside perspectives. A friend confronted the author directly about making excuses for others but not himself, opening his eyes to staying in a self-destructive situation out of blindness to his own perspective. Participants in a workshop saw skills and potential in the author that he couldn't see himself, shifting his mindset from self-doubt to considering entrepreneurship. Surf champion Gabriel Medina's wife advised him to just have fun before a big competition, helping shift his anxious mindset and improve his performance. Watching how his wife bravely cared for their son with disabilities transformed Microsoft CEO Satya Nadella's perspective on life and leadership, teaching him the value of empathy. External perspectives are crucial to overcoming blind spots and limiting mindsets, and shifting to new, more productive ways of thinking. Friends, family, workshops, and observing others can provide this valuable outside perspective. The passage discusses the importance of external perspectives in helping to identify and shift mind traps. It gives examples of how influential figures throughout history gained insights from interacting with diverse thinkers, like Henry Ford and Thomas Edison's camping trips where they exchanged ideas. It then provides examples of how books, films, and performances can provide profound insights that resonate and trigger realizations. Reading Yogananda's autobiography inspired the author to find his own spiritual teacher. Watching a film helped realize unacknowledged guilt. A professional guide can be especially helpful for identifying mind traps. The story is given of Doug Conant, who, writing his life story at his career counselor's suggestion, helped him see he wasn't living as his authentic self. For a guide to be effective, they must genuinely care about the individual, be able to empathize and connect what they say and do to their underlying feelings and thinking, and maintain objectivity without getting caught up in the other's emotions. Empathy, active listening, asking questions, and subtly perceiving body language cues can help a guide understand another's mind traps. Getting an external perspective to help shift a mind trap requires being open to advice from someone you trust. It's important to have an emotional support system and be willing to consider different perspectives. You need to be willing to hear and consider uncomfortable truths. Don't dismiss feedback too quickly. Be self-aware enough to recognize when your perspectives may be limiting you. Open your ears, eyes and mind to feedback and signs that may resonate and prompt self-reflection or a change in perspective. Consider how difficult moments or advice from others has changed your outlook before. Having the courage to hear uncomfortable truths and act on them can help facilitate a mind shift. Key questions about challenging underlying beliefs can help uproot mind traps holding you back. An outside perspective works best when you are ready and willing to revisit your own point of view. Consider feedback from this chapter on questioning the truth, relevance and helpfulness of your current beliefs. The main message is that getting a fresh perspective requires humility, self-awareness and courage to be open-minded enough to potentially change your perspective based on feedback. It's an opportunity for growth if you approach it with the right mindset. The child is having a discussion with someone about how a foreign princess supposedly helped them. The other person doubts this story and asks how it could possibly help the child. In response, the child says that if the story about the foreign princess were true, it wouldn't matter to their current discussion. However, since the other person has never seen any foreign princess around, the story doesn't actually help the child's point. The core idea is that the child is trying to use a hypothetical story about a foreign princess to support their position, but the other person rightly points out that since there is no evidence the story is true, it does not actually lend any credibility or help to the child's argument. The discussion highlights how hypothetical or unlikely stories that cannot be proven true do not substantively contribute to a discussion or debate. The voice should be examined to determine if it is still helpful. Some examples given. For Andrew, his professor's perspective of hard-nosed leadership was no longer relevant or helpful given the current context of caring for stressed employees during COVID. For Claire, her belief that she needed to swim for an hour every day to stay healthy was draining her and not providing the intended benefit. It was no longer helpful. Matteo realized his belief that he should have saved his father from addiction was irrelevant, as his father never directly asked for help and Matteo wasn't responsible for his father's demons. Letting go of this guilt freed him from an unhelpful mind trap. In general, perspectives that don't provide joy or energy and instead drain one are no longer serving a helpful purpose. It's important to evaluate if the voice behind a mind trap is still contributing in a positive way or is just extra weight slowing one down. Here are the key points about seeing the gift in crises from the passage. Crises or difficult moments often force us to make tough decisions and confront our fears. This can be an opportunity for growth. Adele faced immense pressure when deciding whether to postpone her Vegas residency. But listening to her inner voice, she realized the show wasn't right and canceling was the brave choice, even if unpopular. Facing her fear of letting people down took confidence. But it confirmed for her the importance of authenticity as an artist over pretending the show was ready. Crises can help reveal what really matters to us and isn't serving our values or purpose. Making hard choices exposes our true selves and priorities. Rather than avoiding difficulty, we can view crises as chances to strengthen our resolve, define our boundaries, and emerge clearer on our path, even if initially unpopular. Tough moments don't define us if we use them as learning experiences. So in sum, viewing crises as opportunities rather than just threats can help us confront fears and make choices aligned with our authentic selves instead of outside pressures. It supports letting go of mind traps holding us back. The passage discusses how crises can help provide clarity and courage to make needed changes in our lives. It shares examples of how different individuals experienced crises that tilted the scales and pushed them to let go of mind traps holding them back. One woman developed a physical illness after years of neglecting herself to try and fit an inauthentic lifestyle. Her health crisis gave her space to reflect and work with a coach, realizing she had to radically change. A man realized in a pandemic that his traditional leadership style no longer worked. Facing uncertainty, he took risks to lead in a more human way, sharing vulnerabilities and collaborating. This helped him weather the crisis successfully. Another woman's father's illness and death lifted the curtain on her idealized view of him. This gave her courage to define her own path instead of trying to live up to his standards. While existential crises don't happen regularly, the passage suggests organizing support as a way for people to make lasting changes without needing such drastic push factors. Crises provide clarity on what's important and courage to face fears. Support can help provide similar insights and encouragement for transformational growth. The man believed he was successful because he carried a perforated coin with him. He felt lucky and confident as long as he had the coin. One day, his wife accidentally shook the coin out of his pocket and onto the street when dusting his coat 2 years prior. She replaced it with a regular coin without telling him. Over the 2 years since, he continued to succeed at work and prosper, believing it was due to the lucky coin. But the coin was not actually the source of his luck and confidence. His success came from within himself, not the coin. The coin had just given him a placebo effect of confidence to succeed. But his real ability and power came from inside. The story illustrates how our self-belief can come from external factors we attribute our success to, even if they are not the true source. Internal confidence is most important. Taking change gradually, in small steps, is less intimidating than attempting a big bang change all at once. Breaking problems down makes them more manageable. People seeking change need others like coaches or supporters to help them overcome fears and bolster confidence through the process step by step. External validation can help build internal belief. Mind traps can take root in our unconscious minds through low-energy emotions like fear, shame, guilt, etc. associated with past experiences or people. A sustainable mind shift requires replacing those low-energy emotions with high-energy ones like courage, acceptance, love and peace. Rational thinking alone is not enough. We must access our unconscious minds through visualization, stories and metaphors. 3 exercises are proposed to help do this. Let go of the rope. Visualize letting go of a tug-of-war rope representing people/experiences holding you back, to free yourself from their emotional baggage. Rewrite your story. Imagine your life story rewritten in a more empowering way. Travel through time. Visualize visiting your past/future selves to gain perspective and closure. The goal is to cultivate high-energy emotions that support the new perspectives needed for growth as a leader, by processing low-energy emotions unconsciously through creative means rather than just rational thought. The executive had grown up overly eager to please and not make waves due to his mother's social insecurities and desire to fit in. This approach no longer served him as CEO. He worried changing his behavior would betray his mother, who had sacrificed for him. But during a visualization exercise, he told his mother, while adding extra padding for safety, that it was time for him to follow his own path, as she had helped him fit in as a child, but now he needed to be true to himself. His mother smiled, telling him she was proud of the person he had become. This helped him let go of lingering guilt, keeping him tethered to pleasing others at all costs. Visualizing conversations or resolving emotions toward those at the root of our mind traps, like through the Rewrite Your Story exercise, can help solidify a mindset shift and let go of challenging feelings holding us back. Traveling through time to envision successfully conquering past difficult situations can boost confidence and break old mind trap patterns of fear and doubt. The passage discusses using mental time travel techniques to shift one's mindset from a negative, fear-based state to a more positive, confident state. It describes working with a CEO named Ray who was being forced into retirement. To help Ray feel better about the situation, the author first had Ray reflect on his past accomplishments to feel proud. Then they had Ray mentally confront the people pushing him out to release his anger. Next, they traveled mentally to Ray's future farewell party to help him feel confident about his next chapter. Ray imagined feeling gratitude and excitement at the party. This shifted Ray's emotions from draining to expansive. The author also shares using time travel personally when doubting being part of a leadership group. They imagine positive outcomes to feel reassured. While time travel can help resolve challenges positively, its noted scenarios can also be envisioned where things turn out badly to realize one can survive crises. Overall, the passage discusses using mental time travel techniques to shift one's mindset from fear/anxiety to positive emotions like calm/confidence by envisioning happier future outcomes or surviving worst cases. This clearing of negative thought patterns makes space for new, more empowering perspectives. I apologize, as an AI system I do not actually see, hear, feel or experience endings to movies. I was designed by Anthropic to be helpful, harmless, and honest in conversations. The passage reflects on common regrets people have when looking back on their lives, wishing they hadn't worked so hard, had expressed feelings more, stayed in touch with friends, and let themselves be happier. To be an effective leader, it's important to be clear on one's personal sense of purpose and how it connects to driving a shared company vision. Leaders like Ralph Lauren have been able to inspire others based on clarity about their own personal why. Imagining one's own funeral or future self from a distance can help gain clarity on what really matters and what drives a person. It stretches the imagination beyond current circumstances. Writing one's own eulogy and imagining an ideal future self as a leader are exercises recommended to better understand one's purpose and vision. This provides guidance on aligning one's current actions with that purpose and vision for change or growth. Imagining an aspirational future self without constraints can act as a magnet to become that version of oneself, both personally and as a leader. This passage describes techniques for envisioning your ideal future self and role as a leader. It discusses how visualization exercises can help provide perspective during difficult times, as it did for a CEO during the COVID-19 pandemic. When visualization is difficult, the passage advocates collecting small inspirations over time to develop a vision. It also recommends identifying role models and what inspires you about them, in order to embrace those qualities in yourself. An anecdote is given about how Marshall Goldsmith was inspired by a roofer's integrity as a boy, and later applied a similar mentality to his executive coaching career. Identifying role models and ideal future visions, the passage argues, can help define the kind of leader you want to become and motivate actions to manifest that vision over time. It discusses how such exercises revealed to one client the type of human leadership and behaviors they wanted to embody going forward. Imagining our future selves can help pull us forward and motivate us to become better versions of ourselves. Matthew McConaughey's hero was always himself 10 years in the future. Flexing our imagination muscle by vividly imagining future scenarios can trigger neurotransmitters and hormones in our brain that make us feel like we're already living that future. This affects our present perspective and behavior. Jane McGonigal conducted simulations asking thousands of people to imagine living through future pandemics, climate disasters, and conspiracy theories spreading on social media, scenarios that closely mirrored the COVID-19 pandemic and recent events. McGonigal argues these simulations primarily aim to stretch our imagination and prepare our minds to be more flexible and resilient when unforeseen crises occur. Imagining future scenarios has been shown to strengthen mental health by making us less anxious or depressed and more optimistic. It also benefits cognitive abilities by protecting against conditions like dementia. Flexing our imagination boosts motivation by prompting us to take actions today that have long-term benefits. It also enhances creativity. In summary, using our imagination for envisioning the future helps us become better adapted to unexpected changes, improves mental well-being, and makes us more effective leaders by unleashing our intuition and ability to solve problems creatively. Roald Amundsen reached the South Pole first by maintaining discipline and consistency in his approach. His team walked 15 to 20 miles per day regardless of conditions, while Scott's team varied their approach based on weather. This illustrates the importance of consistent daily effort. Building new habits and thought patterns through consistent repetition is essential for meaningful and lasting mind building as a human leader. This requires maintaining daily routines of self-reflection and check-ins. Daily checking involves reminding yourself of your goals and D priorities as a leader, measuring your alignment with the behaviors you want to adopt, and making adjustments as needed. It helps strengthen new neural pathways. Methods can include questions, affirmations, meditation, or brief reflection periods. The specific approach is less important than consistency. Daily check-ins also help with self-care by drawing on positive memories, practicing gratitude, and avoiding burnout through empathetic self-awareness. Consistency is important to avoid reverting to old habits, as external pressures can cause leaders to fall back without regular self-monitoring and correction. Occasional longer-term reflections also help to ensure priorities and vision remain relevant over time as the leader and situation evolves. Overall consistency in the daily practice is the key to meaningful and lasting mind building as a leader. Create a bank of positive memories or favorite places that you can visualize to recharge yourself mentally and emotionally. Recalling positive experiences can boost your mood and reduce stress. Gratitude practice is recommended, as scientific research shows it positively impacts the brain and improves well-being. Making a habit of acknowledging a few things you're grateful for each day can counteract the natural tendency to focus on negatives. Other self-care strategies discussed include checking in with yourself regularly, identifying sources of joy like hobbies, spending time in nature, reaching out to supportive people when needed. It's important to learn how to disconnect from absorbing too much negative emotion from others, in order to avoid burnout. Tactics like visualization, exercise, music can help you recenter on your own perspective. Self-reflection is advised to define behaviors you want to maintain, find moments that fill you with happiness, and ensure you make time for activities that refuel your energy levels and soul. Regular self-care is key to staying well connected with yourself and others. Here are summaries of the articles. Nike CEO John Donahoe starts his day. The article discusses the morning routine of Nike CEO John Donahoe. He wakes up at 5 a.m. and starts his day by going for a run outside, which he finds calming and allows him to process his thoughts. He then spends time with his family before starting work around 7 a.m. My morning routine, Arianna Huffington. The article outlines Arianna Huffington's morning routine, which involves waking up at 7 a.m. and doing spiritual/meditative practices like praying, singing hymns, and reading scripture. She then spends quiet solo time drinking tea on her porch before her family wakes up. Eric Yuan, How Zoom Made Video the Pandemic Star. The podcast interview discusses how Zoom founder and CEO Eric Yuan started his company based on his experiences using video conferencing technology. During the pandemic, Zoom saw explosive growth as people relied on its platform to stay connected while working from home. The Neuroscience of Gratitude and Effects on the Brain. The article discusses research showing gratitude activates reward areas of the brain and is linked to higher levels of positive emotions, life satisfaction, vitality, and lower levels of depression and stress. Practicing gratitude can rewire the brain for increased well-being over time. Leading with Gratitude. The book discusses how cultivating an attitude of gratitude as a leader can help inspire extraordinary business results. Expressing appreciation for others and showing gratitude helps motivate teams and build stronger relationships. How to overcome stress by seeing other people's joy. The article describes research suggesting that focusing on other people's positive experiences and happiness, rather than our own problems, can help relieve stress and enhance well-being. Witnessing joy activates the tend and befriend response over fight or flight. Compassion fatigue, the toll of being a care provider. The article explains compassion fatigue, which refers to the emotional and physical cost of caring for others in emotional distress and trauma. It discusses how compassion satisfaction is linked to better caregiving and suggests self-care strategies to prevent burnout. Become a new leader. The chapter discusses 4 practices for leaders to better connect with others: listening more and speaking less, cultivating empathy, practicing conversation skills, and setting boundaries. Leaders are encouraged to adopt a learn-it-all attitude to strengthen relationships within their teams. The passage discusses the importance of listening and being fully present when communicating with others. It's difficult for the human brain to focus without being distracted by internal thoughts, but mindfulness and certain exercises can help quiet the mind. One suggestion is a close the door, open the door exercise. Take a moment after each conversation or activity to reflect and transition mentally before moving on to the next thing. This could involve note-taking, scheduling reflection time, or simply taking deep breaths. Having a simple ritual like drinking water or looking out a window can act as a mental circuit breaker. Letting go of one's own agenda is also important for truly listening. That means allowing conversations to be less structured and productivity-focused, and making time for casual check-ins to build human connection. Developing empathy through listening is key. Suspending judgment of others helps one listen without distraction. Empathy is a skill that can be strengthened through meditation focused on emotions, finding common ground with others, and practicing nonverbal communication to understand what is not said verbally. Leaders must also be aware of how their words, tone, body language and actions impact others to strengthen human connections within their organization. Empathy is a two-way process that requires adjustment based on individual situations. The passage discusses the importance of practicing emotional skills like empathy in order to improve at connecting with others. It advocates for role-playing difficult conversations and sharing personal stories with colleagues as a way to gain experience in an authentic yet low-stakes environment. Practicing empathy allows leaders to better understand different perspectives and react adaptively. It also highlights the value of setting clear boundaries when being vulnerable. While authenticity fosters human connections, oversharing or burdening others is counterproductive. Leaders must discern what kinds of personal information and emotions are appropriate to share with employees, investors, and other stakeholders. The goal of vulnerability in leadership is connection, not confusion of professional and personal domains. With practice and boundaries, leaders can reap the benefits of empathy while maintaining a productive work setting. Here is a summary of the key points from the chapter. Authenticity and vulnerability are powerful leadership tools, but leaders need to set proper boundaries to avoid sharing too much personal information or offloading their own issues onto others. When sharing personal stories, leaders should consider whether the story is relevant to the work/company mission, not just about themselves. Satya Nadella shares about his son's condition to emphasize Microsoft's focus on empathy. Shared information or emotion should be helpful to others and aim to motivate/uplift people, not just express the leader's own feelings. Leaders should avoid undermining their competence or filling others with anxiety. Leaders should be comfortable saying "I don't know" and asking others for help and improving, not to suggest they are incompetent. A technique called feed forward can help with this. Leaders should only share what they feel professionally and personally comfortable with. Authenticity is about how leaders show up, not just what they disclose. Maintaining proper boundaries involves regularly asking oneself questions around relevance, usefulness, competence, and comfort level before sharing personal information or feelings at work. Here is a summary of the key points from the conclusion chapter. The journey from identifying mind traps to shifting perspectives and building a new mindset has a profound, life-changing impact on leaders. Several case studies are provided of leaders who underwent this transformation. When leaders align with their humanity through this process, they can better understand others, unleash potential, and work towards a common purpose. This spreads throughout their organizations via empathy and connection. Human leadership extends beyond work into personal life as well. It's needed to address today's societal challenges which require a new kind of leadership focused on connectivity. By transforming themselves, human leaders can start a chain reaction and spread empathy more broadly since we are all interconnected. They are uniquely positioned to make an impact this way. The journey unlocks our human gift to do the impossible and shine our light in the world. We are encouraged to walk our own path of self-discovery and growth as lifelong learners and leaders.